This video will show you how to use Michigan's new logging productivity and costs mobile app. Let's start with a few things about the app itself. This is a free app. Anyone can download it and install it on their phone. It's provided by the Michigan Forest Products Council in partnership with me. My name is Steve Bick. I'm a forest economist and I've worked with loggers on financial calculations for close to 30 years now. My company is Northeast Forests LLC. The purpose of the app is really an outreach effort by the Michigan Forest Products Council. It's part of their program to promote a healthy forest products supply chain. A healthy supply chain needs profitable logging businesses. Benchmarking costs and productivity helps loggers make sound business decisions, and it also helps ensure fair treatment of loggers by land managers and by mills. So what does PAC do? Well, it's intended to allow both loggers, land managers, as well as mills to benchmark logging costs and productivity. It calculates costs in dollars per ton for all products. And it calculates productivity in tons per machine hour. And I'll talk about each of these things in turn. Once it's calculated these things, it's created a summary report that can be shared or put together for aggregation. So you can look at all the suppliers for a single mill or all the contractors for a large land base and come up with an aggregate set of benchmarks for both costs and productivity. So this app is meant to be installed on a mobile phone, but it works on a desktop computer as well. It's formatted to work on a mobile phone, but it'll work in either place. It's actually a mobile website, meaning you could get to it, from anywhere with an internet connection, but you can install it, save it on your phone, and then it'll work just like any other app, and you won't need an internet connection or phone service in order to use the app. It will also store your information in a way that lets you work on it and then come back to it again later. So what you may or may not know is you can install any mobile website just like an app onto your phone by saving it to your home screen. And this is done in a somewhat different fashion for both the iPhone and the Android. So using an iPhone, you will go to the website to pull it up. And then if you go to your share button, one of your choices, if you scroll far enough, is to add it to the home screen. So you'll click on that, it'll pull up a prompt. Once you've installed it, it'll just be an icon on your home screen like any other app. Well, if you're using an Android, it's just a little bit different. You're going to have the Chrome browser. You go to the menu, and one of the choices is to add it to the home screen. And again, once you've installed it, no internet or phone service is necessary to use it. So the app is available at michiganforestapps.com. And if you go there, it'll prompt you to pick from a couple of different new apps that are available. And it will also give you an opportunity to watch this video. So how do you use this PAC app? Well, let's go through some step-by-step instructions. The first thing you're going to do is benchmark productivity. It'll ask for some information. Next, you'll benchmark costs, and you'll probably go to your income tax return for some of that. Then you're going to have a report that you can save or share. So I'm going to look at each of these steps in turn. So starting with benchmarking productivity, it will ask you to come up with an anonymous identifier for your company, or you can use your company name. It just depends on if you're going to aggregate the information or not and share it with others. And a few other things. You've got a few other choices there. But one of the more important things about it is You will list all of your equipment and the machine hours involved, and then your annual production. You can choose whatever log rule you prefer, International, Scribner Decimal C, or Doyle. You'll put in your annual production in 1,000 board feet for both hardwood, softwood saw logs. You'll put in, you'll enter your hardwood, pulpwood, or bolts production. That can be in tons or cords. Same for firewood, softwood, pulpwood, or bolts, and then wood chips. But below that are the conversion factors that are used, and these are just some suggested factors. These numbers in the green cells can be altered. So if you think that there is a more appropriate conversion factor for your situation, you can enter it at that time. Once you've benchmarked productivities, it's going to ask you to benchmark costs. You know, fortunately, most people have a good record of costs in their income tax return. Very few people that I know of will underreport their expenses on an income tax return. So there's a little bit of guidance here in terms of where you might find some of the information. If you're a sole proprietor or an LLC, pass-through LLC, you're going to use Schedule C of Form 1040. C Corps use Form 1120, as do LLCs that file as C Corps. S Corps use Form 1120S. One thing to keep in mind here, though, when you're pulling out your information, is that we really only want to use numbers related to logging. So if you have trucking expenses included there, you have to pull that information out before you enter it. Or if you have additional aspects of your business, excavation, for example, any costs associated with that should not be included. In addition to some of the itemized costs from a tax return, it's going to ask about the value of the equipment at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. And that's so we can accurately account for depreciation. Depreciation is important. An accountant will look at it or schedule it in such a way that minimizes your taxes, which is a really important thing to do. However, on an annual basis, in reality, the flows aren't quite that way. So that's why we want to look at equipment value at the beginning of the year and then again at the end. So itemized costs will be entered here. Once you've done these things, and I'll go through each of these in a live demo in just a bit here. Once you've done that, you will have created a shareable report that gives you your costs per ton for all products, and then your tons per machine hour. And so we put your information or individual information in terms that can be compared with others. No two operations are quite alike much of the time, but if we want to come down to the nitty gritty of it, we'll look at dollars per ton, tons per machine hour. That report, and we'll look at one in a bit here, also then has further itemized costs per unit for all the products that your company makes, including saw logs, pulpwood, and wood chips, and so on. So that's a quick overview of the app. I'm going to switch over now and pull a live version of the app up, and then I will do a demonstration. So this is the app, and even though it's a mobile app, I'm going to do the demo here in a desktop web browser just because it's a little bit easier to see. So when you first pull up the app, you just see this image and title and description. Below that are a list of items, and it's sort of an accordion style setup. So if I click on the how-to, it has a detailed explanation for each of the three things that are going on here: benchmarking productivity, benchmarking costs, and then reporting results. So I've gone ahead and entered some data in advance of this. So if we look at benchmarking productivity, the first thing it'll ask for is an identifier. Now, if you're a logger using this to benchmark your own costs and don't intend to share it with anyone, you could certainly use your company name there. If you are a mill working with individual suppliers to aggregate information, or a large land management company working with your contractors, and you want to keep the information anonymous, you still sort of have to keep track of who you've collected data from. So you might put some sort of identifier there. This information is meant to be collected on an annualized basis, so you will put the year, choose the system type, so you can choose cut to length, whole tree with chipper, tree length, which is essentially hand felling, and a cable skidder, and then a hybrid. Sometimes we see combinations of cut to length and whole tree of various types. So if you have some sort of hybrid, you could then enter a brief description below. And then a little bit of information about the size, a single crew, multiple crews, or part of multiple enterprises. And you'll be prompted to choose a region, the UP, the Northern Lower Peninsula, or the Southern Lower Peninsula. So let's switch that to Northern Lower. Then you're going to list your equipment. So what I've listed here is a cut to length system that's fairly new and is getting a lot of use, working much of the year, maybe working long shifts. And so we've got 1,800 hours on the harvester, 1,650 hours on the forester, and 400 hours on the excavator. That gives me the total machine hours. If I scroll down to annual production, the first thing it'll do is ask you to select the log rule. And it's going to use different conversion factors to tons depending on the log rule. So you can go with International, Scribner Decimal C, or Doyle. I'm going to stick with Scribner Decimal C here. I've entered some annual production for this hypothetical crew. And I have 165,000 feet of saw logs, hardwood saw logs, softwood saw logs, 220 MBF, 10,000 tons of hardwood pulp, 450 cords of firewood, and then 7,400 tons of softwood pulp. Below this, in the green cells, are conversion factors. These convert the other measures to tons. These are only suggestions, and you can alter these. So someone in Michigan gave me some of these numbers to use, particularly for Scribner Decimal C. But if you have reason to believe your species mix warrants a different conversion factor, you can just put it in. So I can click on, say, this and change it from 6.5 to 6.25 if I think that's necessary. So once you've done that, you've entered your information. And as a reminder, this is just example data I'm using to show how the app works. The calculations within the app itself are mathematically correct, but the app is only as good as the information you put in. So the numbers I'm showing here are, I guess, informed guesses for now. And don't get too caught up in whether or not you think they are realistic or apply to your situation. They're just examples. All right, so next I'm going to benchmark costs. So the categories here closely resemble what you will find in an income tax return. Again, there's a little box here that shows you which form you might find the information in. Sole proprietors and pass-through LLCs will use Form 1040. Schedule C. C Corps use Form 1120, as do LLCs that file as C Corps. S Corps use Form 1120S. Again, we're only going to benchmark logging costs. So if you have numbers within here that pertain to trucking, whether it's hired trucking or trucks you own, you're going to have to pull that information out and just use the numbers for logging to get accurate results. Below the direct costs, it's going to ask for something specific to your business. So these items include the equipment value at the start of the year, and then again at the end of the year. The difference between the two being the actual depreciation that took place. And again, this may differ from the depreciation schedule your accountant uses because you're looking to minimize taxes in that case. Here we want to have an accurate idea because no one wants to be in the situation where they're running on equity and positive cash flows disguise the fact that they're losing money. So this app uh, will give you an accurate look at the costs, and we'll avoid that running on equity situation. It's going to ask for a core equipment value, what it's worth at the end of the year. This annual, or I'm sorry, what it's left at the end of its useful life to you. Could be a resale value, or it could be a salvage value. Annual overhead was carried from above. It will ask your annual loan payments. So just whatever the sum of your monthly loan payments are multiplied by 12. Annual payroll and compensation costs. So whatever you're paying everyone, including a living wage for the owner operator, whether you're actually collecting that or not. If you don't account for it here, it can seem like you're being profitable when all you've actually done is bought a job. We don't want to track that. We want to know what it really costs to be producing. You're going to include any fringe benefits in here, as well as workman's comp costs. Below that, it'll ask you how many gallons of fuel you're using, and then it'll ask for a fuel price per gallon. I've got 385 here. I'm going to change it to 380 just because I can. Once I've entered all this information, I will click on the report button. And what you have here is a printer-friendly report. So it's got an identifier that may or not be the business name, the year, a little bit about the system. If it was a system that was a hybrid, a description would be included here. Single crew, northern lower, total expenses, total machine hours, total production in tons. So we find that this company has a cost per ton, an average cost per ton, $23.87. And then productivity, and if we think of productivity as being the ratio of output to effort, then we're going to have that in tons per machine hour, 5.21 tons per machine hour. Below that is a little bit more detailed report of costs. You've got each of the products, how many tons of each were produced, what the percentage of production is, but then it's converted back into the original unit. So for example, in this case, hardwood saw logs, while only being 5% of production, had a unit cost of $149 per 1,000 board feet. Pulpwood, $24 per ton. And any other categories that might go on there. So once you have this report, you're going to want to save or share it. One way to do that is a simple screenshot. But if you are an organization, a mill, a land management group that is working with your logger partners to benchmark costs for everyone, you're going to get all this information in one place. So you can use the share button on your phone's browser to email a text or text a copy of this either to yourself or to whoever filled it out. And one of the things you can do there, you could print it directly to any printer that it's hooked to, but you can also go to the options and select that PDF format. That's a great format for keeping records. And then you can email or text it to, or even possibly send it right to a Dropbox or a Google Drive. So that's a great way to get the information and keep it all together. So I anticipate in the spring of 2023 a live online training session with anyone who's going to try and aggregate benchmarking data for their suppliers or their contractors on their land base. So that's yet to be scheduled, but we'll talk more about what you do in the aggregation phase at that point. So at this point, I just want to summarize what we have talked about and give you one last look at the PAC app. So MichiganForestApps.com, that's where you'll get this app. And when you go there, you're going to get a choice between the PAC app and one of the other ones provided by the Michigan Forest Products Council, one called Limb. So you'll have a choice of either one of those. These are absolutely free apps. They're provided by the Michigan Forest Products Council and developed by me, Steve Beck from Northeast Forest LLC. I encourage you to go to MichiganForestApps.com and give these a try. Thanks for watching.